This E91 started out as a fairly stock BMW wagon with a few aftermarket parts on it. We put the stock engine and suspension to make this an LS-powered machine that we can take to Holley's LS Fest in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Here's our 6-liter taken apart, and don't let the looks deceive you. This thing looks like it's been sitting in a salt bath for about 6 months, but it's really not that bad. There's no ridge on the top of the cylinder bores. You still see the crosshatch in there. So some time spent now with a Scotch-Brite pad and some cleaning solution will get this thing looking pretty good. An engine building friend of mine has been quoted as saying that LS engines are like Lego kits for hot rodders. And with so many different parts combinations that have been tested on hotrod.com, you can plan a very stout engine package and know ahead of time what kind of power you're going to get. In our case, a low-mile 6-liter bottom end with a Stage 2 BTR camshaft, freshly rebuilt 243 cathedral port heads, and an LS6 intake with stock throttle body should make just over 400 horsepower at the rear wheels. And we will be able to tune on it thanks to our Holley EFI setup. The aftermarket makes this swap very easy to do with companies like E90 that give you everything you need to get this engine under the hood and running for under $1,000. This is what's often referred to as a Stage 2 cam for LS engines. It'll make excellent power between 2200 and 5500 RPM, which is the sweet spot for our cathedral port heads. Like most modern engines, the LS engine has a lot of one-time use fasteners. We are replacing most of the critical fasteners on this engine with some ARP bolts and studs. This not only eliminates the one-time use torque to yield fasteners, but the metallurgy and design of ARP fasteners is superior to OEM, removing stress risers in the design to eliminate failure points. Even though these heads are completely rebuilt, our cam requires a valve spring upgrade with these 560 lift Beehive valve springs.
Now, in addition to doing this awesome V8 swap, we're also ditching the automatic transmission and going with a 6-speed manual. We picked up a Tremec 6-speed for an F-body application. Now, to connect the trans to the block, we picked up this bell housing. It's an aftermarket bell housing, which makes it stronger than your standard F-body setup. And what makes this unique is it's got an internal clutch fork or traditional clutch fork setup and an external slave cylinder. That way, if you ever have an issue with hydraulics, well, it's a 1-hour job and not an 8-hour job. Now, we could have gone to the parts store and picked up a direct replacement clutch, but since we're going to be making over 400 horsepower and who knows what down the road, we decided to pick up a high performance clutch that can handle a little bit more. To control it all, we just picked up a used pedal assembly from a manual transmission 3 Series. Now, first thing we got to do is get the bell housing on the transmission.
Our 6-liter originally came with variable valve timing, which we're not going to need in this application. So we installed a kit that eliminates the VVT. It comes with a new front timing cover. Put the cam gear on, set the cam timing dot to dot, just like on the old small block Chevy. I test fit Holley's low clearance oil pan. This is the one that's specified for our BMW LS swap application. It's got a shorter sump for a lowered vehicle, and we'll clear all our suspension components. I've got it sitting in here just to make sure the windage tray and the oil pickup tube all come out in the right place. The next step is to put on the timing cover, get ready to drop the cylinder heads on, button this thing up, and get it into the car. One tool that's an absolute must when rebuilding LS engines is the front timing cover alignment tool. This ensures proper alignment of the front seal when tightening the front cover bolts. These are Holley's cast iron LS engine swap manifolds. They fit a variety of applications. They fit very close to the block, so they'll fit in many different engine compartments. Plus they have a thick cast iron flange for leak-free seals to the engine.
When I started getting into this stuff in the mid-90s, CarCraft was one of the magazines I would reach for. There was hundreds of titles on the magazine shelves, but I liked the way CarCraft did it. It seemed like more of a regular guy approach, not huge budgets, a lot of just getting stuff done in the backyard and making things happen. About the same time I was reading those magazines, I did the first engine swap in my E30. Had never done an engine swap before, or read about it in the magazines, you see it done, and it just going to give you some confidence to tackle a job like that yourself.
Our engine's almost back together, as you can see, and in the process we decided to replace all our ignition components with this brand new stuff from E3. The Delco stuff on here, who knows what kind of shape it's in. This coil's broken. So we decided just to get rid of all this stuff, replace it with brand new stuff from E3. We've got new ignition coils, new Diamond Fire E3 spark plugs, and new spark plug wires.
Now we've got our stock brake pedal assembly out and we're getting ready to swap in our third pedal. The cool thing about these cars is the master cylinder reservoir can double as your clutch reservoir. You just got to access one of these ports by cutting off the end. It'll let the fluid flow. That will feed this line here, the pressure line coming out of the clutch master. And we've got this slick little fitting from Earl's, plugs right in. All we need to do is make up an AN line.
The center force clutch is really awesome because it's got a lot of clamping power, but it's very drivable for the street. The clutch is installed in the back of our LS engine inside our quick draw bell housing, which is made in the USA. This ties our whole driveline together and really looks great. With a little bit of work, Ryan and I were able to get the 6-liter into the BMW.
The bracket kit to swap the LS into the E90s is designed to use the factory BMW engine mounts and can be used with either the truck accessory spacing or the F-body spacing. It also uses the stock BMW power steering pump. All right, now we got our engine wrestled into place and sitting right on top of the factory BMW isolators using the engine mount brackets supplied in the kit. And now it's time to tackle some of the front drive accessories. Again, using the bracketry that was supplied. It's pretty slick. It ends up reusing the factory BMW power steering pump and uses any large GM alternator, large body GM alternator. And since we got a bunch of room on the front of this engine, now's the perfect time to address some of the wear items that might come back to bite you down the road. So we went down to our local AutoZone and picked up some Duralast replacement parts. You already saw the water pump we installed. We picked up a new alternator, new starter, and a new belt tensioner.
While Ryan's working on the front accessories, I'm going to start laying out the wiring harness for our Holley Terminator X Max system. This is a standalone EFI system that will work with most LS engines on the planet. It has self-learning capabilities through wideband O2 sensors, that gets you really close. It's got 4 inputs, 4 outputs. We're going to be using 2 of those outputs to drive the electric fans for our BMW, plus it'll integrate with the BMW throttle pedal for drive-by-wire on our LS engine. All of it can be controlled through this handheld controller that also does data logging, and we'll mount it inside the car.
Now, since these 3 Series cars are available with the manual transmission, well, there's already a hole in the floor from the factory for the shifter to poke through. It's just sealed up by the base of the automatic transmission shifter when you choose that option. But the cool part is how well this transmission shifter is going to line up. We might have to do some minor trimming of the hole to make it fit a little bit better, but I think our Tremec shifter is going to fit just fine. Now, another reason these BMW chassis are such great vehicles to start with is the amount of effort the factory puts in to making even weight distribution throughout the vehicle. To do that, they do things like putting the battery in the right rear corner, they use the front engine rear drive layout, and they use a saddle fuel tank, which puts fuel sumps on either side of the drive shaft to split the weight up. Now, doing that creates some fairly complex plumbing inside the fuel tank. And to make it work with our swap, we picked up this fuel hanger surge tank from Radium Engineering. Now, this system uses the factory fuel pump to feed the sump of our new aftermarket fuel pump, which will in turn feed the engine.
The LS engine is in the engine bay, and we still have a few things to take care of before we head to LS Fest. But anytime you install an engine, you really want to hear it run.